Well, welcome to this short little presentation on intonation, which of course is a very important aspect of playing the clarinet, but because of the acoustic characteristics of the instrument, we are set one or two interesting intonation challenges. You don't just finger a note and it will come out in tune as the piano does. To begin with, I thought I'd just give you a rather a fun little game you can play to actually develop your sense of intonation. If you do this on a fairly regular basis, in quite a short time, you will just be better at intonation. So here's the idea. So I'd like to introduce you to a strategy for helping us to know when we're in tune and to literally to improve our ability to know whether we're in tune or not, to judge our intonation. What you'll need is an electronic tuning device, but the important thing is that basically we're not going to look at it much of the time. We are going to use it quite a lot, but we're not going to look at it as we play our note. So maybe I'm playing a piece that starts on a C, C2, and I want to tune that note. So first of all, without any reference at all, I might just try to hear that note in my head, what I think that C might sound like. I might get it wrong, it doesn't matter. I'm going to try to hear it in my head. I think I've got it. And then I'm going to play the note. I'm going to play it for a bit, and then I'm going to make a decision. Do I think it's in tune, slightly flat, slightly sharp? And in a sense, for this very first one, it doesn't matter at all. And then whilst I'm playing it, after I played it for a bit, I'm going to just turn around gently and see if I can see what the machine tells me. I'm going to play the C. Okay, so I played it, and one thing I actually would just like to mention is that whenever we play a note, almost always, they will always start slightly sharp, just for a moment. It's almost impossible not to let that happen. The very beginning of a note will always be slightly sharp, and then it settled down, and I thought in my mind, I think this is probably about in tune, or maybe just over, and it was just slightly over, just slightly sharp. So I've got to try to remember that exactly. I'm not sure I can remember it exactly now because I've done all this talking. And then try it again and see whether I can get it slightly flatter. And with that C, it's probably going to be use of oral cavity. I'm going to use my voicing, as they call it in the States, to see whether I can get that note just a slightly, tiny bit flatter. And there it is, I did. I just said that for the moment I looked at it anyway. I don't know whether you can see it from there. The green light came on and it was in tune. So I got that C in tune. And without all the talking, I'd be remembering these pictures. So now I'm going to maybe try the C below that. I've got the pitch in my mind. I think that's pretty well in tune, and it stayed there. It will stay there for a bit, this machine, and it was pretty much in tune. The green light was on. Now from that C, because I'm listening to the harmonics as well, I can hear the G above it, the harmonic on that C. I might then go straight to that G and see whether I'm playing that note as in the center of the note as possible. Oh, a little bit above, only slightly. So I'm going to try that again. I wanted to make a decision, of course, in my mind. Was I slightly above? Was I in tune? I mean, we're talking about tiny amounts of movement away from the actual focus of the note here. Let me have another go, because I was a tiny bit above there. So again, this is mostly through voicing. I'm not going to fiddle around with the instrument, and I'm not going to use other fingerings. and I was there or thereabouts that time. I just kind of brought it down very slightly. Hope you can't hear all those birds seem to be in my garden. And then once you've started on this kind of procedure, you just carry on. Choose notes that are related, octaves or fifths or harmonics. Choose intervals that you might be playing within a piece that you're learning. And if you practice this on a regular basis, so you play the note, you make a judgment, then you look. Then remembering it was slightly sharp or flat or in tune, with that in your mind, you play it again and do whatever you want to do next. So you only look to check. You don't look. If you look at the machine when you're tuning, your eyes will tune the note for you, not your ears. So it's essential that you're always using your ears and then checking up afterwards. So that's really a way to actually improve our tuning. I'd just like to talk a little bit about this, what I think is a really fascinating aspect of intonation. If you play with a piano, then you just have to play in what's called equal temperament. A piano is tuned to equal temperament. And for example, if you were to tune the first note on the piano, the bottom note on the piano, and then you went up tuning it by each semitone, you literally go into the next note and tune that. When you got to the equivalent top note on the piano, it would be different from the bottom note. It would be out by what's called the comma of Pythagoras. And so they don't tune it exactly in tune. Every interval, literally every interval on the piano is slightly mistuned by the most tiny amount, but slightly mistuned, so that when you get to the same A at the top as you were at the bottom, that A is in tune. Now, if you're playing with a string ensemble, for example, a string quintet or choirs, really good choirs can do this, or you're playing in a clarinet ensemble, we can use a much more pure form of intonation, which is indeed called pure intonation or just intonation. And here is a little table of how notes in pure or just intonation differ from equal tempered notes. Now, some of them are absolutely minuscule. A cent is, of course, is 1 part in 100. So, for example, a major second is actually tiny bit higher than a tempered major second, but we are really not going to hear 4 cents. But a minor second is actually, in pure intonation, lower by 29. That's just about 30 parts in 100. Now that is audible. And if you have a particular kind of tuning machine where you can really look at these tunings in that sort of detail, you will find that you can make these changes. If you're interested in quarter tones, for example, then you'll certainly be into this sort of area of playing. So the minor second, and also the minor seventh, which is interesting. A minor seventh in true intonation is very slightly sharper than a tempered minor seventh. And again, you might not think 17 out of 100 is very much, but it is enough to be slightly audible. And of course, if you use this kind of tuning in an ensemble, it makes the harmony utterly beautiful, because it's pure harmony, pure intonation. It's very interesting. So I do kind of suggest that to you. You might like to think about that. I just want to mention this comment that people often say, you have to lift that note up, lip that note down if it's slightly sharp or flat. And whilst I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, I just want to suggest that the problem with that is that it will probably have an effect on the tone quality. It will compromise the tone quality as well. And I want to go through the different registers now, just giving you maybe 1 or 2 thoughts on each register, on ways that we can adapt the intonation if we need to, ways other than maybe lipping up or down, which may not always give you the best tone quality. So let's have a think now about some tuning in relation to the registers, and I'm going to go through now with a little video, just 1 or 2 thoughts for each register. So in the shalom register, maybe the important point to make here, amongst 1 or 2 others, but the important one is that when we play very softly, it's likely that the notes will be a little bit sharp if we don't take care. And rather than lipping the note down, which might compromise the sound, I want to try to do something maybe with my voicing, my tongue shape, and have my tongue quite low. So without having my tongue low, I'm just going to play this note. I think it was in tune when I tuned it, but I'm now going to play it very quietly and see where we go. So it's a little bit sharp. It started quite sharp, I'm sure, because it always does, but then it settled down. So I'm going to try to voice it and see whether I can move it a little bit lower with my tongue being low in the mouth. There it is. It's dead in tune. And I hope the sound wasn't compromised. And you know, for very soft notes, I just might want to think about that just to bring it slightly more into complete focus. So moving up to the throat register, similarly, particularly when playing softly, the throat notes are likely to be sharp. And there's a number of ways of adjusting this, or two anyway, important ones, which you'll know about. One, of course, is putting extra fingers down and finding other fingerings for those throat notes, which of course also have the effect of improving the quality because we're bringing more of the tube, resonance of the tube into use. So if I play just an A flat, again thinking what my tuning needs to be, but just playing it fairly softly, it's probably going to be sharp. Always start sharp and we'll bring it down, but that was sharp. I wasn't looking at, there it is. These things remember, which is very handy. So one of my favourite for A flat, and you'll have your favourites, is 2 and 3 and 1 and 2, plus obviously the A flat key. So I'm going to have those fingers down, plus a little bit of, again, using my voicing. So I'm going to have an or shape, and that should bring it down and give it a good tone as well. So it is dead in tune. So it has a very nice kind of focused tone quality, and it's very well in tune. And we can play similar games with all the other throat notes. The point I think I'd like to make with the clarinet register, particularly for more elementary players, is that as they go up, the notes tend to get a little bit sharper. And this is usually because they've simply got too much embouchure, too much lip pressure. So although this is not really, in a sense, lipping up or down, it's very important that as we get higher in the clarinet register, that we're not in any way biting. Let me give you an example. If I play some higher notes without thinking about it, or as a more inexperienced player might do, they're really quite sharp. If I just readjust my embouchure, I need to think about it, and you know, with practice, and if I'm practicing for a period of time, your ears become more sensitive anyway. And if you're playing with other people, piano, a string quartet, you will obviously make those adjustments intuitively. But that's an important point, I think, about the clarinet register. The altissimo register is actually probably the most fun to think about in terms of intonation. First of all, there are endless fingerings to use, and I suggest you just kind of experiment. There are books, can't find my one here, 303 fingerings, has got endless fingerings for these high notes. So try different fingerings because they will inevitably be different on different instruments. But most interesting, of course, is again voicing again, and we can bend notes in the clarinet register so much, as you probably know. And I'm doing all that with adjustments of my tongue shape. And if you're listening and you know where the note needs to be, you'll be able to play it in tune. But so lots of practice. different fingerings and with voicing is going to make intonation in the altissimo register really work eventually. You may know about this new book I've just done, the clarinet. There is quite an extensive chapter about intonation in it, and like all the other chapters, it does give you quite a lot of exercises and little sort of games you can play with a tuning machine and in other ways with another player to develop the ability to really become very aware of intonation and so therefore to play in tune. So I hope you've enjoyed this little presentation, and I hope it has an effect on your interest in intonation. Thanks very much.